Hello and welcome. Today, we're diving into the Bhagavad Gita. Now, for millions of people, this isn't just some ancient text gathering dust on a shelf. It's a living, breathing guide for navigating some of life's deepest, most challenging questions. So let's see what it has to say.
And it kicks off with a question that, let's be honest, every single one of us has probably asked. Why is it that no matter how hard we try, life so often feels like a struggle, just full of anxiety? The text hits this head on, saying, hey, we're all full of anxieties simply because we exist in this material world. It's a very real, very human place to start.
And right from the get-go, the text basically gives us its mission statement. It's not just a book of philosophy. Its whole purpose is to show us a way out. That word nescience, it's just a fancy way of saying ignorance, a kind of deep-seated confusion about who we really are and what reality is. The Gita says that confusion is the real root of our suffering, and its job is to turn on the lights. So here's the game plan for our journey today. We're going to start with the building blocks of reality, the 5 basic truths. Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of karma, which is really the engine driving our experience. After that, we'll uncover the art of all work, the Gita's path to freedom. And finally, we'll look at what it calls the highest perfection.
Okay, first things first. Before you can solve a problem, you have to understand the field you're playing on. The Gita lays out 5 fundamental truths that it says are the absolute building blocks of, well, everything. Let's break them down. So here they are. Éçvara, that's the supreme controller. Jéva, the individual soul, you and me. Then there's prakåti, which is material nature itself. Käla, eternal time. And last but not least, karma, which simply means activity. Understanding how these 5 pieces fit together is the key to the whole puzzle. All right, first up, éçvara, the supreme controller. The text uses this really great analogy. A little kid might see a car moving down the street and think it's just moving on its own, like magic. But any sane adult knows there's a driver, someone behind the wheel, controlling the machine. Well, in this view, the entire universe, with all of its perfect laws and functions, also has a director. And that supreme director is éçvara. Next up, we have the jéva. That's the individual living soul. That's us. The text is super clear here. We are an eternal part of the Supreme, but we are subordinate. We are the ones being controlled. And it makes a really strong point. It says that any living being who claims they aren't controlled at all, that they're totally and completely free, is, from this philosophical standpoint, considered insane. So this is where that distinction gets really fascinating. See, both the supreme controller and us, the jéva, are conscious, but there's one massive difference. Éçvara, the supreme, is conscious of all bodies, everywhere, all at once. But the jéva, you and me, we're only conscious of our own little body. The text says we all have this tendency to want to control things. It calls us minute éçvaras, or tiny controllers, but we are definitely not the supreme one. And then you've got prakåti, or material nature. Think of it as the energy of the Lord. It's real for sure, but it's also temporary. I love the comparison it uses. It's like a cloud passing across the sky. It's there, you can see it, it has an effect, but it's not permanent. It's gonna pass. And the crucial part is that this material nature doesn't just do its own thing, it acts under the direction of the Supreme Lord. And this right here, this is the pivot, the real game changer. So out of these 5 truths we just talked about, the controller, the soul, nature, and time, 4 of them are eternal. They just are. But there's one that isn't, and that's karma, our activity. The effects of our actions might go way, way back, but the text insists that we can change our karma. And that possibility of change, that's where the whole path to freedom really begins. Which, of course, brings us to the famous concept of karma. Now, we've all heard the word, right? But in the Gita's context, it's not some vague, mystical fate that you can't do anything about. Nope. It's a very precise law of cause and effect. It's the engine that drives our experiences and determines the consequences for every single choice we make. So, here's the mechanics of it. It's a loop. First, we do something, any action. That action creates a result, good or bad. Then we have to experience that result, either as some kind of pleasure or some kind of pain. And that experience, well, it tangles us up even more, shaping what we want and what we do next, which just keeps the whole cycle spinning. Action, reaction, on and on. And the consequences of this cycle are, well, they're huge. According to the Gita, this whole thing doesn't just stop when we die. The reactions to what we've done actually follow the soul as it moves from one body to the next.
So the life you're living right now is in a very real sense the result of past actions. And what you're doing today, that's creating the life you'll experience down the road. So this leads to the million-dollar question, doesn't it? If every single thing we do binds us to a future reaction, how on earth can we ever be free? Is there any way to act in this world without just piling on more and more karmic debt? Is it possible to actually break the chain? The Gita's answer is a resounding yes. And this is where the Gita lays out its central solution, what it calls the art of all work. It's a kind of spiritual technology, a way to completely transform our work from something that traps us to something that can actually set us free. You've probably seen this iconic image before, Krishna advising the warrior Arjuna right there on the battlefield. It perfectly captures the heart of this solution. It's not about quitting your job or running away to a cave. It's about changing your consciousness, reorienting your inner compass, and acting under a higher guidance. This practice is called devotional service, or yoga, and it's really a radical shift in your why. It's about your motivation. You still do your job, you still live your life, but you stop doing it for your own personal gain. Not for the paycheck, not for the praise, not for what you can get out of it. Instead, you do it purely as a dedicated offering to the Supreme. The outer action might look exactly the same, but the inner consciousness is a world apart. And this quote just makes it so incredibly practical. This isn't just for monks or mystics, it's for every single person in every single moment. Your job, the food you eat, the money you give to charity, the Gita says to transform every single one of those activities into a conscious offering. And when you do that, the act is no longer binding. It no longer creates karma. So if you actually follow this path, where does it lead? What's the end game of practicing this art of all work? The Gita describes the destination as nothing less than the highest perfection of life. First, the Gita puts its finger on the fundamental problem with how we usually chase happiness. We're always trying to satisfy our own senses, right? Chasing the next good meal, the next vacation, the next promotion. But the text argues that this is a dead-end street. It's a game you can never ever win, and it's guaranteed to leave you feeling empty. And here it is, the big reveal, the ultimate conclusion. The highest perfection of life isn't about finally becoming the supreme enjoyer yourself. It's the complete opposite of that. It's about shifting the entire purpose of your life from satisfying your own senses to satisfying the senses of the Lord. And that state of pure, unconditional, loving service, that is what's presented as true happiness, the ultimate goal. All right, so let's just quickly recap the whole journey. A lot of our anxiety comes from being tangled up in this web of karma. Reality is made up of 5 big truths, but only one of them, karma, is something we can actually change. By really getting how karma works, we can start to see how our choices every single day are literally creating our future. The way out, the path to freedom, is to turn all our work into a devotional offering. And the ultimate destination of that path is this state of pure service, which the Gita calls the highest perfection. So I'll just leave you with the core question that this entire philosophy really asks us to think about. In a world that screams at us 24/7 to focus on ourselves, to get ours, to be number one, the Gita offers a completely radical alternative. What if the real purpose of life, the actual key to being happy, wasn't about serving yourself at all, but about serving something infinitely greater?